Keith Pitt, thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you.
Look, I want to ask you about the coal situation in Australia, our exports. There's a lot of problems here with the relationship with China. But first up, are you concerned that the Port of Newcastle, the largest coal exporting port in the world, is half owned by China? And this is a port, of course, that exports a crucial resource often to China.
Oh, well, actually, I was in the Hunter in recent weeks, and that is the world's largest coal port. About 96% of everything that they export out of that port is coal, so it's an important part of the local economy. And of course, we're well aware of the changes in terms of the lease put forward by the New South Wales government, similar to what the Northern Territory did with the Port of Darwin some years ago. And the Commonwealth did make changes to ensure that couldn't happen again without the Commonwealth's input.
Yeah, we all know about the Port of Darwin. People are very concerned about that because it's strategic, but a port could hardly be more strategic in economic and defence terms than the Port of Newcastle. As you mentioned, the largest coal exporting port in the world. Is it a concern that China would half own this port? And the owners, CM Ports, China Merchants Port, they are committed to the Belt and Road Initiative. They see their infrastructure throughout the world at various countries as being part of China's Belt and Road Initiative.
Oh, well, Chris, as I said, the Commonwealth made changes after the Port of Darwin sale to ensure those things can't happen again without the involvement of the FIRB and the Commonwealth. But once again, these were state decisions. It's a state-owned port. My understanding is it was a lease for 99 years, but it remains a really important part of the local economy. I know Joel Fitzgibbon understands that very clearly. It's why he stepped back from his front bench, shadow front bench position with the Labor Party. And we've got real challenges around support for the resources sector from the other side. But we continue to support the sector. It's been absolutely remarkable how strong it's been retained across the economy through the COVID period. But, Chris, that's been the absolute result of those individuals who are out there working incredibly hard. And as I said in question time today, I was just so pleased to see those images this week of family reunions, particularly for people who've been away from home for months, just to keep their job, keep their businesses operational and keep Australia's reputation as a reliable supplier in place. And I think that's great.
All right, but I want to get back to this Port of Newcastle. You say the laws have been changed. Can you say explicitly then that the federal government's uncomfortable with that ownership arrangement, and if you could have in the past, you would have prevented it?
Oh, well, clearly we had concerns about that lease and the lease in Darwin. That's why we made changes inside Josh's portfolio now as the Treasurer to ensure that the Foreign Investment Review Board would be involved in any future potential leases or sales of those strategic assets. Those things are on the record. We made those changes and I stand by them.
OK, so the Foreign Relations Bill will be going through Parliament in the next couple of days. It will enable the federal government to undo arrangements such as Victoria's deal with China over the Belt and Road Initiative. Would that same bill be able to examine what is going on with the Port of Newcastle and its half owners' commitment to the Belt and Road Initiative?
Well, international affairs are very clearly the purview of the Commonwealth and the federal government. What we've found is that states, local governments, universities have gone and signed up to agreements with other nations right around the world, some of which we are clearly concerned about. That's why we are putting forward that legislation to specifically make changes so we can reassess and have the Commonwealth be involved in those decisions. Dan Andrews' decision to run off and join the Belt and Road Initiative, I think, is the wrong one. We've clearly provided advice as to what the Commonwealth's view was. But without that legislation in place, we don't have a position on the statute we can utilise to ensure it doesn't go forward.
All right, from that we can presume that apart from looking at university deals and state deals, that you would have a look at just what CM Ports plan to do when it comes to Belt and Road initiatives. Now, tell us about the situation with coal ships stranded off China. There's at least 60 of them. They're containing Australian coal. How worrisome is this situation back down the supply chain for the future of coal exports and the economic damage to our country in the future?
I'm clearly concerned. I mean, the coal industry is worth about $55 billion for Australia. Roughly $14 billion of that is into the China market, about $4 billion in thermal and roughly $10 billion in met coal for making steel. We know it's a big part of our export right around the world. But we also know that in China, more than 90% of their coal supplies are sourced domestically. They're a very big producer of coal themselves, but nothing beats the quality of Australian coal. And if we come back to look at the Newcastle port, as we were just discussing, Chris, one of the other challenges we've got right across Australia at the moment is banks like the ANZ and others have come out and made decisions not to finance the parts of the resources sector. Now, I just find this nonsensical. It's a huge part of our economy. It employs 247,000 Australians directly, and yet we have bank CEOs and boards making decisions about what they will and won't finance, not based on what the financial return might be or the risk might be, but simply because they don't like the product. Well, I'd say to all of them, if that's the case, we'll get out of mortgages with workers in the resources industry, see what that does to your bottom line, because quite simply these types of activities make it very difficult for our resources sector to source financial capital, and many will look to go overseas to ensure their viability. Now, I don't think that's in Australia's interest, and I certainly don't think it's in the interest of workers.
What a time to be alive, hey? A country like China, supposed to be a friend of ours, a trading partner, and they're trying to inflict economic pain on Australia. And as you mentioned, banks and others within this country trying to attack some of our most beneficial export industries. How quickly can we ramp up our trading arrangements with other countries, other markets, such as India, to reduce our reliance on China?
Well, you make a really good point. I mean, this is why we've signed free trade agreements with a number of other nations, including Japan and South Korea. We're pushing forward on IA-CEPA with Indonesia. We've obviously just signed up on RCEP, which has taken many years to come to conclusions. The TPP, and that's still open for the US to join the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And we've taken Australia's exports from roughly 20% being covered in trade agreements through to 70% in our time in government, and that's what provides those belt and braces provisions. So Japan is still our biggest market for thermal coal. It's almost twice China's. But all of those individual companies, they've got their own contingency planning. They make their own risk-based decisions. A lot of it, of course, is based around the price in the market. And COVID-19's had an enormous impact, Chris. It really has, in terms of price and what's driving the market, with economies around the world certainly struggling through the pandemic. So I think they will recover. There'll be more opportunities for Australia's resources. But our reputation's been enhanced by the hard work of the men and women in the resources sector. What they've done in the last 6 months to make sure their businesses were operational has just enhanced Australia's reputation as a reliable supplier. I mean, can you imagine Japan or South Korea if Australia's resources weren't able to be delivered? It'd just be chaos.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us, Keith. I appreciate it.
Hey, great to be with you.